It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is in Mexico City. Richard Campbell's in Redmond for a Microsoft conference. We'll talk about Windows 11 in 2025, the end of the line for OneNote for Windows 10, and another big week for AI. A whole lot coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 925, recorded Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. It's the shirt. It's time for Windows Weekly. Get ready, winners and dozers. It's the time we gather together to speak with Mr. Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com, today in Mexico City. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Leo.
Hello, Paul. Also with us, but this time from Redmond, Washington, the host of Runners Radio and .NET Rocks, Mr. Richard Campbell. Why are you in Redmond, Richard?
It's the MVP Summit. And I was able to ping a friend at DevRel Studios and borrow Studio C.
You look great.
Yeah, it's a great camera. It's a Red Dragon, I think. And
oh my gosh.
And a Rode and SM8s, nice rig.
I shot Brad with a Nerf gun.
Is that the event that you guys were building a pillow fort?
No, that was built. That might have even been PDC back then.
That was a long time ago.
I found that video. That video is on my YouTube channel.
Oh, fun! It was
Long Zhang fell asleep. We built a pillow fort around him, and then we used it to we dive bombed it when Mary Jo was interviewing Tom on the show. Actually,
hysterical. Any good gets yet, Richard? Any big shots?
I've talked to some phenomenal folks, but it's all NDA, so I can't really discuss anything we're doing here right now.
I mean, just high level, kind of. Just
there's some conversations about artificial intelligence. I don't know if you've heard of this. Yeah, it's been a couple here and there. A lot of preview of what's coming at Build. So
I'm going to write an article called
be a good show.
Exclusive. Microsoft to discuss AI at Build.
Discuss AI. Yeah, no.
We're interviewing after the show on Intelligent Machines a longtime Silicon Valley journalist, Gary Rifkin. His new book is called AI Valley.
Yes.
And
I just pre-ordered this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be. I read it last night. I was up till like the middle of the night reading it. It's really good.
I was trying to remember why he factored into, was it the Netscape Microsoft stuff or
so he starts at the beginning. I mean, he literally starts with John McCarthy.
No, I mean like in his career, before this book,
he worked for Wired.
Famous.
He wrote a bunch of books. He wrote a book about Bill Gates.
That's right.
Called something like "Why Everybody Hates Bill."
Everyone's trying to kill Bill Gates, or yeah. Ask him. If you could put that in the public domain so I can get it electronically, please.
Okay, I will.
Because a lot of the books from that era are just paper only. They're,
I will ask him that. That's a good point. He refers to, he calls Pascal Zachary his mentor. He refers to him.
That's
one of the guys who got him into tech writing. But he also talks a lot about Microsoft. And really, if I were to summarize this book, and of course we'll talk to Gary in a few hours and he can do a better job, but I would say a lot of it is how it looked at first like it would be a kind of typical startup scene in AI with a lot of small companies, and quickly became apparent that it costs so much money.
Yeah,
and Microsoft was very adept getting he calls him Mustafa Suleiman, and building up a really strong AI presence, and then putting money into OpenAI to make sure it had the lock.
That said, I mean, it might have just bought itself the same position.
We don't know.
It may have just prevented itself from falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
But
sometimes you got to be in the race to win it, right? So
he's very complimentary of, unlike his book about Bill Gates, he's very complimentary about Satya Nadella and his kind of prescience in saying, we really need to make the acqui-hires and bring people in. Because we need to have our own AI efforts.
One would argue their advantage was really the Azure data centers. that they
absolutely.
Yeah,
they
of
got
course,
more
that's where
GPUs.
Nadella came from. So he
Yeah.
knew. Yeah.
Right.
The cloud was very good for him.
First, he was the Bing guy. Then he was
Yes.
President Server and Tools. Which
Then he was
included
fresh meat, as I referred to him when I met him, as he was when he was part of the server team.
He said, it's funny in the book, he's quoted as saying when he was 21, he did not want to come to the States.
Yeah.
He was very happy in India, but he got an offer he couldn't refuse. And so he did when he was 21 to get his degree and never left, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting book. And it's the best so far overall survey of what's going on in AI. Although, I mean, it's out of date the minute it gets published, right?
No,
Sure.
it's going to be is it like next Tuesday, maybe? It's sometime soon.
Yeah. I'll find out. I'm not sure. I have a PDF. I don't have the book itself, but it's a good read. I'll save it for you. The electronic.
Well, I'm going to
version.
buy it either way.
In fact, I'll ask him. Could you just send me the PDFs of all your books? I need it for research.
Yeah. Well, I needed to feed it into the AI so I can get a summary of it, and then I can write my review.
Actually, that's another good question. When we talk to writers, is how do you feel about AI ingesting your content? But
we're going to talk about this. This is going to come up.
Is it? All right.
Yes.
But first, Windows. Let's kick things off. We'll get to AI and all that stuff in a bit. But first, Paul, let's kick things off with Windows 11 in 2025.
Yeah. This is a potentially, I'm going to call it pretentious. Pretentious? Is that a word? Week for Windows?
Pretentious? Contentious?
Or contentious, yeah.
Portentous?
Contentious? Well, it's always contentious for sure. Yesterday, I'm losing track of days, but I think it was yesterday, Tuesday, which was also week D, preview update day. We'll get to that. Microsoft issued a new dev channel build with absolutely no new features. So naturally, I wrote a 6,000 word blog post about this because that's what I do. No, because we have been waiting for that moment where dev and beta had been in lockstep 24H2, which was the signal that at some point dev was going to split off and probably go to whatever the next Windows version is, 25H2, Windows 12, who can say. And that is what happened. So it's a new build number series, if that makes sense. So previously in dev and currently on beta, if you're in 24H2, the build stream, the build numbers are 26.120 dot whatever.
Right.
They've moved to 26.200 dot whatever.
Oh, okay.
You will be amazed and unpleased to know that it's still 24H2. Yeah. So we could
service pack that will never die.
I know. It's not completely unprecedented, but it is somewhat unprecedented. It's unusual, certainly.
Yeah.
It's likely that at some point this will become whatever, right? I mean, there is going to be another version at some point. But the reason I wrote such a long thing about this is that, well, originally I just went into this saying, okay, let me just kind of look at like where we've been, and I can just kind of talk about where I think we're going. And it turned into something else entirely. Mm-hmm. Because last year was unique in the history of Windows in the sense of we're testing this coming versions, whatever, of Windows. And we've never had a year like last year. So we know that 24H2, for example, there were two releases. Essentially, there was one in June that accompanied the Copilot Plus PCs. Mm-hmm. And then there was the one in October that was for everybody, right? And of course, in between then, they kept updating it. If you were on x64 and wanted to get it, you could. I mean, not difficult before it was officially released. And then, of course, there were also the Copilot Plus PCs themselves, adding another little element of kind of weirdness in there, because in the same sense that we have different features in Windows Home and Pro and then whatever other versions, we also have features that are unique to these Copilot Plus PCs.
Yeah.
And
plus also the ARM chipset on top of that. Like they really did take a big bite last year.
Yeah, last year was the year that ARM finally became a mainstream concern. It never was before. It was always
not
lagging
that you can
behind
get ISOs yet, but
We did finally in October. A lot of stuff happened last year. They announced recall as part of the new AI features. It was the only interesting feature at the time. And now I would argue that actually it's not the least interesting, but it's not the most interesting anymore. They were going to start testing that immediately, and then they held off on that until November, right? So
Why is it less interesting? Did they hobble it?
No, because now there are more interesting features, right? So if you look at the set of Copilot plus PC features that originally shipped in June, most of them were just not very good.
Weren't really anything.
Right? Yeah. To me, the interesting feature now is something called Click to Do, which they did not reveal until September-ish last year. It was described as a feature of Recall, and it is something that exists in Recall. In fact, that's how they first tested it. But within a month or two, it was just added to, well, it's not, this is part of the story. It's not out in public, but in preview, it is available just anywhere in Windows. So you hold down the Windows key and you click anything on the screen and does the AI sparkle thing. And then they have actions related to text and images that you can do on whatever it is you're looking at, right? So it works with everything in Windows. If you have a Copilot plus PC that's enrolled in the dev channel that is running Snapdragon X, it's like a whole series of whatever. And this is what last year was like, right? So I almost had to remind myself of this. I don't know how you guys cope with things that are negative in your life, but for me, not explicitly as a strategy, it's just the way it works out for my brain is I just forget, my brain can hold so much. And so I know vaguely, obviously I have this notion of the history of Windows and all that stuff in my head, but last year specifically, like going back over this was almost like reliving trauma. I was like, oh my God, right. Like this was really, it was crazy, right? So because they didn't go to 25H2 or 12 or whatever, right? I kind of looked at this and I was like, all right, so there are actually three, I guess we call them branches of 24H2 in the world, right? There's 26100 series builds. That's general availability. That's what's in stable. Like if you're running Windows and you look at WinVer, actually, this is not one of those. It's running. Oh, no, is it? No, this is on a dev channel. So it's 26100, whatever. Okay, fine. If you are running the beta channel now and the dev channel previously on 24H2, it's 26120. And if you have gone forward with the dev build, as I have now on two computers, it's 26200, right? So actually, I left out one of the things that was unique about last year. The other thing that happened was 24H2 came out only for Snapdragon X-based Copilot plus PCs mid-year.
Right.
But at the time, 23H2 and 22H2 were both mainstream supported stable versions of Windows 11. And I don't remember now off the top of my head when this happened, but at some point last year, they started making it so that the end user features in each of these releases were identical, right? That was one of the big stories from last year, actually, right?
Right. Yeah. So that now all of a sudden these different packs made no difference. They all had the same features.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, 24H2, Microsoft has still been very vague about this, but was actually a major Windows release in the sense that they made a lot of architectural kind of foundational level changes.
I had run-as shows where Microsoft people said point blank, this is a new operating system.
Yeah. But they don't really talk about, they do sometimes, but something this big, you think there'd be some huge documentation or whatever it is, explaining all of the ways in which it's different. The way that a normal user might sort of have a hint at that being the case is how many bugs there were, right? So 24H2 was also unique in that super buggy, right?
Yeah.
Even the final release, the initial October 2024 release, is the version where that menu goes up off the screen in File Explorer. Yeah. That was the shipping version. They had been testing, I think, for several months. Like it's super buggy. And even today, there are stories, not every day, but every week, where, this thing is still being blocked. You can't get it for this reason, or this thing is there, whatever. They're still kind of trying to catch up with that. And I think it's tied in part to these changes they made at a very low level, right? In October, I believe it was, 22H2 went out of support. And then today, for the most part, 23 and 24H2 and stable are roughly identical. There are a handful of features that are not present in 23H2 and possibly and vice versa. The big one is the context menu stuff. So if you right click in File Explorer or on the desktop, right? I should say right-click a document or a file of some kind. You get those, remember the hieroglyphic little icons at the top we all complained about for 2 years. They fixed that in 24H2, so they have text labels, but that's still not fixed in 23H2. I guess it's coming. They had to delay it or whatever. Anyway, with all that as background, that's about 3,000 words of that article, I guess.
Right.
I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I spent hours on this. I went back to September, right before 24H2 hit x64, and I looked at not every single update to Windows 11. This would have taken a couple of days. But because my machine, now 2 machines are in the dev channel, I just looked at dev channel. So this leaves out some stuff. This leaves out new features that were introduced for Windows 11 that maybe went into other parts of the Insider program and not to dev, which does happen. Mm-hmm. New features that went to Windows 11 with no testing, which absolutely happens. Mm-hmm. Standalone app updates, right? We know that, Copilot was updated several times in this time frame. Right. Just that one app. And that's not the only app.
But they weren't as like 24H2 updates. They were
just across the board.
Updates.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, I should say, too, if you look at the Insider program like I did, and that was speaking of trauma, they will, in this app, and we'll discuss this later in the show, too. Obviously, there are these new builds that come out. This is a new build for Dev or Canary, whatever channel. But they also say, well, here's an app update for Paint or Photos or Snipping Tool or whatever it might be. And it's not specific to a channel. Like sometimes it will be all of the channels. It's going out to all insiders, which is kind of a hint. It's probably coming soon, right?
Right.
Or it will go just to 1 or 2, and then it will go to 1 or 2 more, and then we're getting there, right? So one of the things we've talked about a lot on this show is this notion that it's not always logical. To us anyway, when I look at the Insider program, I think, okay, well, you're going to start in Canary. It's going to work its way through the program, right? It's going to go to dev, it's going to go to beta, it's going to go to release preview, and then it's going to stable. And it doesn't always work that way. So I spent hours on this. I went through every single, again, dev channel only Insider preview build and documented every major-ish feature that they introduced in that build. And I went all the way from September through the other day. The other day was easy. There were no new features. Some of them have many new features. Some of them are several, whatever. Then I went back and I looked at, on Microsoft Learn, there's a page that tells you all of the features that are in every monthly cumulative Windows 11 update. So for example, in the September one of the things that was in there is Windows Sandbox 2 in preview. That arrived in a build in late September 2024. It was released in, I have the name of it, I'm not going to read it here, it doesn't matter, but KB whatever, November 12th, still is a preview. So that thing is actually in stable now. It was in testing for roughly 2 months. It's still in preview in this case, but that's kind of unique. And then I did that for every single feature. And what I came up with at the end was most of the features they tested did make it into Windows 11 at some point. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's never a trend where on average new features take about 2 months to get from dev to stable. That's not how it works. They're all over the map. But there's also a really long list of features that have not been released, right? If you're in the dev channel, you can access these features today, but if you're unstable, you cannot. And that list is very interesting to me because I think that list constitutes what is this next version of Windows, right? Whatever we're going to call it. And there's all kinds of questions about things like, will Copilot plus PC features come to PCs with GPUs? All that stuff we talk about. But
right.
The fascinating thing to me was coming up with this list of features. I spent the better part of the day on this, and I finally published it. And all I could think was, I got to go back and do this for all the other channels. There's got to be more, this is a partial list. But anyway, a lot of it is Copilot plus PC only. So, some of it is still Snapdragon X only. One thing that has been consistently true, and I think this speaks to this arrangement with Qualcomm we don't really know much about, is that new Copilot plus PC features always go to Snapdragon first. Always. At least so far.
Okay.
And then they will eventually make their way to x64 ARM and Intel. Some of the newest ones have not yet, right? But things like Recall came out with Snap to do in November. In preview, it still has not hit stable, but sometime within the month, it also went to AMD and Intel, right? But Copilot plus PC only. They added features to it over time. They brought Click to Do outside of Recall over time. Again, Snapdragon first, eventually AMD, Intel. App actions, there's all this stuff. But the list is kind of interesting. Not all of it is humongous. I mean, for sure, like our major, but I think the Recall, Click to Do, app action, the modern Windows Hello experience, right? A lot of the app updates that are specific to Copilot plus PCs, Paint, Photos. I don't think Snipping tool. I think Snipping tools for everybody. Search with semantic indexing, right? So this is AI search, right? Essentially, right? So it was interesting to see that this thing evolved over time. First came out on Snapdragon only for, I think it was documents in the cloud, meaning OneDrive. And then it eventually went to photos in the cloud. Then it went to any kind of file locally, as long as the Windows was configured to index the drive. Mm-hmm. It eventually went to AMD and Intel. And there's actually a plug model in there where third-party cloud vendors can plug into this. Not yet, but will happen. So if you have Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, they can choose to support this, and you can use search in Windows. There's multiple interfaces to search in Windows, right? So there's the search pane that comes up, which is tied to that search box that you may or may not have in your taskbar. There's also search in File Explorer, right? And so these features went to each of these things at different times, different platforms, whatever. They're still not stable, but interestingly, in that case, and we'll look at this in a moment, but the release preview build that just went out, I think also yesterday, has this feature. So this is actually going to hit stable pretty quick, So it's kind of, to me, I mean,
but you still don't see an order. Like, they don't follow their so-called rules of going through dev and beta.
There are no rules.
Yeah.
First rule of Windows 11 dev, insider preview is there are no rules.
Good luck. Yeah. And I wonder if it's just different teams approach it differently. Like, there's a lot of different contributors going into that stack. But
yeah, I mean,
where's the gatekeeper?
So back when Windows was the or a primary concern at Microsoft, I think it's fair to say, gatekeeper. I was going to use the term wrangler. There was a there was a Jim Elchin. There was a Steven Sinofsky. It was somebody who was
Gabe
like,
Old, right? Like back in the day.
Someone's like, all right, let's get this stuff together, right? I think these days you're probably, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to speculate, but I think what you just said is essentially correct. That we got a bunch of stuff coming in from different areas. They all have this kind of marching order. Like, if you can figure out some AI something, we'll take it.
No, that's definitely a theme throughout all the teams right now. It's like, listen, you better have AI in there somewhere.
Yeah, like again, this wasn't part of this thing that I wrote, and I kind of want to go back and do this, but like, you think about something like Notepad, right? So Notepad, semi-controversially, although honestly, I think they've handled it well, has adopted these AI features. So you can do rewriting, the poem thing I was talking about, et cetera. Mm-hmm. When that first appeared in preview or in beta or whatever, we don't really have those terms anymore, but through the Insider program, I guess I sort of assumed it was a Copilot plus PC specific, right? Because that's where I saw it. But actually, those, I'd have to look that one. I'm not 100% sure. That is either out now and stable or will be any second now. And actually, it works fine on a non-Copilot plus PC if you have it. And the reason it does is it hits the cloud and it uses those AI credits if you have them. And eventually, if you use it enough, I keep using this Venn diagram thing for some reason, but the Venn diagram of people who use Notepad and then use a lot of AI credits probably doesn't intersect much. But if you are using it that much, you could eventually run out of AI credits, and then they would say, "Look, it's time to buy Copilot Pro or whatever they call it." So yeah. Even though this, like I said, even though it's incomplete, there's a bunch of stuff that I did see that was related to Paint and Photos and actually Snipping tool, but there's much more than that. And there's much more than that in other apps as well. And now I have to say, I'm kind of curious because as we've talked about these updates every week, right? So every week there's some number of something, in the Windows Insider program. I was kind of wrestling with like, have they really shipped like a ton of new features or some new features, Right. And they have shipped a ton of new features. And there's a ton that they've tested that have not yet shipped. And I would look at this and argue this is like this reads to me like a second wave Copilot plus PC release, which is what the first 24H2 was, right?
Right.
And it kind of makes me wonder if they're not going to do something similar this year, and that they're either waiting for a standalone Windows Day or whatever they do, or maybe it's something tied to Build or
Might be Build.
The AI day they're having at the campus in a couple of weeks or whatever. I don't know. Right. But either one of those would make sense, which is why I think it probably won't be either one of those, because Microsoft doesn't make sense anymore. So it's just the George Costanza opposite day thing with Microsoft right now. So
if you're sure that's the right choice, it's the wrong choice. You should do something the opposite of that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me. So don't do it.
No.
Is that what we're thinking? It kind of feels like that.
Well, and I'm disturbed at how quiet Qualcomm's been about a new chipset. Like this is the time to come out with another round. Like if you're really going to make a run at this.
I know. So my understanding, and this is just based on sources that I can't divulge or say or whatever, is that September is the time frame for that.
Right. At least not 2026, because that's what it sounded like at first.
I would like to see something quicker. Every time they did an announcement, remember in the beginning, they just announced the thing. And then eventually they're like, okay, we're going to have plus SKUs. And then we're like, oh my God, you guys are bidding these things. What is this? And there was some number of SKUs. Then there were more. And then IFA came and they announced like the Snapdragon X Elite and Plus. And now there's this X, so it's like, how low can we go? It's like, I don't know. You seem to keep adding new, I guess
you're trying to get the overall yield up. Yeah. And the demand for chips is significant, right? Like all crazy. Of this is good.
Yeah. But what I've wanted to see is like a step forward, right? Instead of just like, meeting lower end parts of the market is important. I get that. Yeah. I'm not dumping on it, but we know that the focus on the first gen was getting the processor where it needed to be. And, tied to what Microsoft did with the Prism emulator, they did a great job with that. And the focus on this one's GPU. And you hear these little things that are pointing to where they're going, right? The announcement a week or two ago where Epic Games is working to bring their anti-cheat stuff to Qualcomm. Yep. And and all of the Auto SR stuff, that the ability to run look, we sort of accept most devs, or just games are out in the world and no one's going to go back and fix them now, but they're just coded to x64. So this thing has to work well with
emulation. Yeah.
Yep. And it's getting there, but yes, better chip would be important as well. So,
and there's so many things they could be revving, and they had to make a cut sometime in 23 to get the production into play for 24.
Yep.
Like they've had time to make a better chip, to realize some issues.
Yeah, they have. But
I suspect they're mostly pushing on yield, that they're trying to improve the print design for EUVL so that they can get the yields up, because that takes several iterations, and you tend not to build new features in your chip while you do that.
Oh, yeah. Just a couple things. I mean, they did go very quickly from that. I think it's called, is it Onyx, the processor core of that, to use it in mobile. So now there are Samsung devices out in the world, and there'll be others soon if there aren't already, using this, what started as a PC architecture.
Yeah.
Intel, not exactly the fastest moving company in the world, has since September released and revved on Lunar Lake and Arrow Lake, right? Yeah. And AMD, which is like the goofy quiet kid in the corner, never has anything to say, blew everyone away in September with their first gen Zen 5 stuff. And we thought, well, okay, this will be the year. I mean, they'll do
here we go. We got an ecosystem, right? We got some real players.
January came, CES, they exploded it upwards. They did what I wanted Snapdragon to do, or Qualcomm to do. And I mean, that stuff, I still, to this, I'm having trouble. I don't know if you heard about this. There's some kind of a tariff thing going on right now, but I have 2 computers waiting somewhere in ICE or something that I can't get to. So I haven't had a chance to test these latest AMD things. I'm sure they're off the charts. But based on what I've read about it, it's like they did this astonishing thing with the first gen Zen 5 stuff, and then they were like, it's 3 months later. Let's do it better. was like, what are you doing? It's crazy. So they're doing awesome. So yes, to your point, like I would like to see Qualcomm. Qualcomm's not like a little company. They've been doing this for a while. I mean, I know PC, this is getting a PC
Qualcomm
chip that actually works.
Emails, right?
Yeah, this is new. This is a new place for them. They're like, oh my God, people like this. So anyway, so yeah, I am now firmly. In fact, I almost certainly will do this. I think I'm going to go back and look at the other channels and just to get a more complete picture of this.
I'm still wrestling with what machine to build. Right.
Yeah.
Like I do want to build a machine. It's really
it depends on what you're doing, right? For you, I would say even for most people, I would look at the AMD stuff. I think it's incredible.
No, I think that's a fair call. And I've not had an AMD machine for years and years.
Oh yeah, they're nice now.
Oh, they're really good. They're really good.
I ordered the Framework desktop. I don't know when I'll get it, but that's the AMD AI chip.
But you won't get that till April or May or
I think they said third quarter. So
yikes. Okay.
Yeah, well, they're batching it, so
and they come through too. Like this has been Framework's pattern all along: is build up a big enough batch to get a good order structure together.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
And they do come through.
Oh yes, I have had many a Framework device. This is my first desktop. It's their first desktop, actually. I'm going to think of it. All right, I want to take a little break if you don't mind. We are also doing a little test to see if it's my shirt that's causing the sync problem. So
yeah, I think it is.
Look and see. Is it?
You have a lot of pride in your work, if you know what I mean.
That's not pride. That is a serape.
That's a fantastic shirt.
Burke says that Richard is behind by 2 seconds.
Now, did that just happen when I went on camera?
Kinda.
Maybe it is shirt.
Can we apply a black and white filter to you and see if that does anything?
Maybe it is the shirt.
Wow, that'd be really something.
You improved our frame rate by like 3 to 5 frames per second by just.
I'll go put on a black polo to match Paul. We'll see if it's better. All right. Well, we're going to see if we can keep Richard in sync for an entire commercial. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. Hello, Melissa. Love these guys. For 30, 40 years now, the trusted data quality expert since 1985. So 40 years. But what I love about Melissa is they don't rest on their laurels. They're always getting better, always getting more interesting, always getting new features. They've added a lot of AI features lately. And now they've just debuted in the Stripe app marketplace. So if you use Stripe, and who doesn't? I mean, when I go out and buy a bagel, it's Stripe. When I go buy furniture, it's Stripe. Stripe customers now have access to the same, Stripe users, Stripe sellers, I guess I should say, have access to the same data quality services that these big global enterprises are using every day. And it's fully integrated into Stripe. The key features include, of course, address validation. That's what Melissa's known for. It's nice to have it at the customer level because that's where often the first missed keystrokes happen. A transposed number and a zip code or an email that's missing a letter. And that can just propagate throughout your whole database and ruin your day. They also have subscription management. They offer smooth management of API keys and subscriptions, which makes it very easy to start with a free service and then transition as you get more comfortable with it to paid services. And of course, they have comprehensive support. Melissa's known for their support and quality assurance. As a Stripe seller, you'll have direct access to Melissa experts, ensuring high quality service and support. I don't think you're going to need it. It's such a sweet, smooth integration. It really transforms your business. You know that enhancing operational efficiency, boosting customer satisfaction, maintaining your overall financial health. Those are the kind of the 3 tent poles for any forward-thinking business. And if you use Stripe, hey, this is amazing. You got an ever-expanding tool set at the ready with Melissa. Melissa's services, by the way, are absolutely secure. You can reassure yourself on that point. They understand compliance better than anyone. With Melissa, you get secure encryption for all your file transfers and an information security ecosystem built on the ISO 27001 framework. They adhere to GDPR policies. They're SOC 2 compliant, et cetera, et cetera. Your data is important to you. It's just as important to Melissa, and they protect it like it was their own. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Melissa.com/twit. And if you're a Stripe seller, you really got to go look at the Stripe app marketplace and check out Melissa. What a great thing to add to both your customer input and to your invoicing. Sending the invoice to the wrong address, that's not good. Thank you, Melissa. They've helped our business, and you support us when you use that address, melissa.com/twit. All right, Paul and Richard.
A lot of good HDR jokes about your shirt in there, by the way. But
in the Discord?
Do you need Dolby Vision to wear this shirt?
Somebody's saying it's the time code in the shirt. It is a secret message.
There it is.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not.
It's from Mexico. It probably says something like resist.
It should. Right on. I love these shirts, and it's become my wardrobe now. So this is a more recent purchase. I've been adding to the collection. I think I have 50 of these Abrazos design shirts.
Awesome.
Which means I can go, 3 months without repeating. Count on it.
Can't go 10 seconds without repeating myself. I don't even know what that's
But
like.
they're all, that's the thing about black polos, Paul, is no one knows if that's last year's black polo or this year's black polo.
I can tell you it's not last year's because it's from Amazon and they don't last that long. But
there you go. If Burke, what do you think? Should I change my shirt? Is that really causing the problems? Wizardling says, could you run some tests after the show, work out how powerful a graphics card I need to upgrade to in order to display Leo's shirt without lag?
Wearing a 5090 shirt.
Leo, how many Bothans had to die to bring that shirt to market?
I'm going to go change. You guys go on. Please.
All right. With the 6,000 word epic, whatever the hell that was behind us.
Your treatise.
There's more. Right. Yeah. So yesterday was the Tuesday of week D, right? This is something we've probably didn't think about much a couple of years ago, but in the Windows 11 era, or the more recent years especially, this has become an important thing, right? So in addition to the 4 channels that are inside of the Insider program, they allow people, they want people in stable to flip that switch in Windows Update and start getting updates early, right? And so yesterday, Microsoft released new preview builds for Windows 11 version 23H2 and for Windows 10. It's like, but not for 24H2.
Okay.
But I just said that 24H2 and 23H2 are pretty much on the same path, right? Same features. And actually, if you look at the features that will be in next month's Patch Tuesday update, at least for 23H2, it's going to be 24H2 as well. You'll see, well, you won't see this because you didn't write the article I did, but I see all the same features I just documented, right? So text scaling to more of File Explorer, these new top cards in settings about gamepad virtual keyboard for the touch keyboard, the emoji icon in the taskbar, which is super important. That change to Task Manager we talked about, where they are calculating the CPU workload for processes and other things differently now. And then voice access, which we just talked about. Qualcomm-powered Snapdragon X, Qualcomm Snapdragon X powered Copilot Plus PCs, you can now use voice access with natural language, right? So you don't have to get the text parser exactly right. You can kind of eyeball it. It will probably work. It's using the NPU on the PC, and then probably in a month or two it will come to AMD and Intel because that's how we do things. So no 24H2. That's not actually all that unique. Remember, one of the other things I didn't talk about that happened last year is that this happened last year a bunch of times, 3-4 times at least, where week D or even Patch Tuesday came and there was no update for 24H2. But then a couple of days later, that landed, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that be the case. And then kind of supporting that is that sometime in the past few days as well, Microsoft released a release preview build of Windows 11 24H2. And you're not going to believe what's in it because it's everything I just said. So voice access, gamepad, keyboard layout, blah, blah, blah. Everything I just said is in this thing. So it's absolutely coming. This is definitely a preview of what we're going to see in Patch Tuesday. But a couple of unique things as well because of the Copilot Plus PC aspect of 24H2. So the semantic search feature is actually landing in stable next month. And that's fascinating to me because when you think about I'm going to say major post RTM or post initial release Copilot plus PC specific AI features, this is the newest. They only started testing this fairly recently. I mentioned that they started in little batches where they put it here, and then they added different file types. But of the big stuff, which I would throw in, recall and click to do in there, right? This is the latest, and those other two are not coming out this next month. And this speaks to what Richard was saying earlier. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. Yeah. I can't explain that, but well, okay. So there's that.
Yeah.
There was a beta 23H2 and a Canary build. The Canary build was just an hour ago. Just fixes mostly, no big deal. And then there were these app updates. And this is the other thing I'm particularly interested in, because there have been a series of app updates, especially to Paint, Photos, Notepad, and Snipping tool over the past, I'm going to say 4 to 6 months, that significantly enhance these apps. And let me just make sure this is the case. In the case of Notepad, the latest Notepad, Paint, and Snipping tool features, which were kind of released separately to different parts of the Insider program, in all cases are now available to everyone in the Insider program. And because app updates don't have anything to do with Patch Tuesday typically, or Week D or anything like that, that could happen anytime. But I suspect this stuff is going to be kind of right around the same time as Patch Tuesday, right? Because it's in release preview. So yes. And these are all just the new AI features. I mentioned briefly the Notepad stuff with the rewrite tools going out to everybody, not just Copilot plus PC. There was that consolidated Copilot menu in Paint, which they're bulking out now with additional features, some of which are Copilot plus PC specific. Snipping tool and has some interesting new stuff, and is an app that Microsoft has paid a lot of attention to. That was one of the things I noticed, since last September. There's been a bunch of updates to Snipping.
But how many
tool.
people use this tool? Like, I know we do, but does regular consumers use this tool?
Right now, I don't use it a lot because you can't capture the mouse cursor.
Right.
One of the new features in this app, which you won't see as a user, is that extensible is not the right word. It's kind of API based now for developers. So you as a developer, you have an app, you could say, I want to use this feature from Snipping tool, not the app. But I want that feature. You can start doing that with this new release. And that's actually kind of interesting, because one of the features it has is like OCR capabilities, right? So you bring in an image and then it gets the text. Like, you could say, I just want that. That's actually very interesting to me. When I wrote that thing I wrote, the thing that occurred to me was, like, I should write an app that's basically just Snipping tool, but it lets you put the mouse cursor in it, because that's what I need for screenshots, right? So it's the one thing it doesn't have. But there are like little quickie screen capture things you can do with this screen recording things, I should say, that I actually do use it for. So it's kind of odd to me that my most common usage of Snipping tool is actually for screen recordings that are typically 8 to 15 seconds long, because I'm just showing something that's a little more than a still frame, right? Maybe like for my app, showing, cycling through the tabs or something you can't capture in a screenshot. And you can post that thing to YouTube in 2 seconds because they're so small. And now they have one of the features that's in this release is the trim capability, right? So when you create a recording, you can trim it, right? This is the most basic video editing feature of all time. So we're getting to the point where this thing could replace other tools, right? So I didn't understand why they replaced anything, like why they even brought this thing. I never understood the point of it. But now that they're kind of bulking it out in ways that are actually useful, it's like, okay, well, actually that sounds okay. And then Photos, which it too has seen a steady series of updates over the past several months for both everybody and those only on Copilot plus PC. So you see different stuff in there depending on what you have. Now integrates with Copilot, because of course it does. It has to. There are right-click options. This is getting a little overblown. Remember, one of the things that Microsoft did in Windows 11 was look at the menu, the context menus in Windows 10, which often were humongous, cut them all down, and everyone hated it. And now they're just adding new features to this thing willy-nilly. Like the menu in Windows 11 now is almost as big as it was in Windows 10, and it's about 5 times slower. So it's wonderful. But two of the
and you still can't find the thing you're looking for because it's an icon at the top or the bottom.
So, when you have selected a file, a group of files, one of the options in there is share, which is an icon. But now they also have like a menu for it. So if there's a compatible app that you can share that thing with, it will be on the menu. So you can go share WhatsApp or whatever app. They're doing this with photos as well. So the photos option in there, probably, I think if you right click an image, it probably says edit in photos, I would imagine. But in addition to open with photos, right? But there's a photos sub menu, and now that will have options for like edit with photos, erase objects with photos, visual search with Bing. They're bringing forward these kind of integration things. And so that photos toolbar, I guess, at the top used to be, kind of the Windows 10 style, white icons on black or black on white, depending on the color scheme. And then they started adding things to it, right? The first thing I think they added was like a Clipchamp icon, and now they have designer.
It's got color.
Yeah, their color, exactly. Completely inconsistent. It's beautiful. But now Copilot is in there as well. And the Copilot button will expand over time with new, other features, but it does things like, tips for editing photos, framing suggestions, et cetera. It's going to do what AI does, I guess. So they're just starting to test that, but I would expect that to keep going. And then I mentioned OCR in Snipping tool. They have brought that capability to, or are bringing, I should say, this is still an insider program, but they're bringing that to photos as well, because of course, right? I mean, this is a tough one because, a couple of years ago, one of the big conversations we would have had is, you look out at Microsoft Office, right, which is part of Microsoft 365, and there's all these different subscriptions. We used to have different versions of the suite, but now we still do actually, but we really just have different versions of Microsoft 365 subscriptions, but we have different versions of these apps. So just Microsoft Word, there's a version on the web, there's a version on all the mobile platforms. There's Windows, there's the Mac, and one day some version of Word gets some feature, whatever it is, doesn't matter, like transcription capability, whatever. And it's on the web first, right? And then one day it's like, oh, now it's in Windows. And then 2 years later, it's like, oh, we put it on the Mac. It was really hard. It still is hard to keep track of where features are. And I feel like with the AI stuff, we're starting to get there. Because if you think about OCR, which is the ability to take an image, and if there's text in it, get the text out of it, copy it to the clipboard, open it in Notepad, whatever. Okay. I would argue, Paint, photos, Snipping tool has it. That actually Snipping tool, I think, had it first. But then there's click to do. Click to do just brings it to everything. Why are we even putting this in apps?
Yeah, and get different teams, and they haven't coordinated with each other.
So so we're getting
missing Bill Gates again. He would seem to be the only guy who could look across all the teams and say, "Y'all are building the same thing. Figure it out." And I don't know that anybody else does that.
No, Ray Ozzie had a big problem with this too. Like he would always have to set up 5 teams to all do the same thing and let them fight it out. And it's like, guys, we don't need 5 Microsoft Sync products. We need 1 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing to fight it out in private, but when everything's going into preview so that we're all being slung back and forth on this stuff, like it looks bad and it's frustrating.
Yeah, you just described my entire career these days, Richard. That's beautiful. So I'm trying to figure it out. I can't look when this is something like the features of Office, right, which spans so many apps and services. My brain can't. I can't do it. But I look at Windows 11, I think, okay, I could probably handle this, but not really, right? Because there's what you see. I had to. When I was writing that article, I had the one of the dev laptops that I was writing on, and then I had what I'll call a stable laptop, and they were so different. Like just something like File Explorer. File Explorer. Let me see what it looks like on this one. File Explorer on this computer, which is what I don't even know what this one is. It doesn't matter. Yeah, this is the new one, right? So
this is
it has
200
tabs inside of it. I don't mean tabs like for documents. I mean the home view has tabs for things like favorites, recommended, shared, etc. Some of those, by the way, brand new. Recommended and shared are fairly recent things that I don't think are unstable. At one point, I got up and I just walked to my wife's office and I said, "Could you just open File Explorer real quick?" She did, and I was like, "Yep, that looks nothing like what I'm seeing in there. Fantastic." And that's it's a tough problem. I mean, for someone like me, like I have a book, and it's like, how do I write about this? But maybe more or maybe more common. You're an IT admin, have to support a bunch of users, or you're just the tech guy in your family, and they always come to you, and it's like that guy is used to knowing what they expect to see, and now it's like, spin the wheel, Bob. What do we got this time? File Explorer is a great example because there's so many features that have come online, but sporadically and not to every computer over the past several months, and there are more coming. And so it's just hard to keep track of, but it's just something I'm trying to do. This is where I'm drawing the line for. I'm like, okay, come on, you can do this. But I can't. The truth is I can't, but I'm trying.
An interesting question is, should an operating system be consistent to all users or not? I don't know what the answer is, but yeah. By the way, I got a black shirt. I hope that's
you do. How'd you find
that's
something
helping?
Like that? Is that your wife's shirt? What did you get?
I have shirts here, so I made a black shirt. I don't know if that's going to help overall with the codec.
So Leo, I think there's a small problem.
What's that?
Well, one of your collar tabs. Oh no, it's the giant rainbow, whatever the hell that is
in the background.
Are you in the Matrix? What's going on?
Oh my God, the shirt is spreading.
Yes, it leapt. This is the same shirt that leapt off of the shirt.
Yes.
We've entered into like a sci-fi horror movie.
I think, all the color went out of the shirt
into the room.
Into my background.
That's it.
Should I do a spot now, or do you want to talk about the Photos app too, right?
No, we got it. I think
you got it? All right, let's do a little. Are you okay, Paul?
Everything's fine. We're fine.
Let's do a little break, and then we'll come back with more of Windows Weekly. By the way, does this background change the sync at all? Is everything
my butt
okay?
Look big. What's going on here?
All right, I'll turn it off, and we'll just continue on as if nothing happened. But I did put on a black shirt because I think maybe that'll help. We'll see. That seems like the shirt shouldn't really screw things up. I mean, it just seems on the face of it.
No, but if my experience with Windows teaches us anything, it's that it making sense has nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it. I know computers. They're
ones and zeros. That's how we make magic.
It's a mystery. It's not a mystery how this show gets to you. Our show today brought to you, and I mean literally, by CacheFly. I've been saying it for years. Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com/twit. We love CacheFly. They're our CDN, Content Delivery Network. For over 20 years, CacheFly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivering, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries, and we're one of them. We've been using CacheFly practically since we began, almost 20 years now. We love their lag-free video loading, the hyper-fast downloads, the friction-free site interactions. It's the only CDN built for throughput. I'll give you an example. CacheFly now offers ultra-low latency video streaming that can deliver video to over 1 million concurrent users with sub 1 second lag, less than a second. Lightning fast gaming delivers downloads faster with zero lag, zero glitches, zero outages. And if you've got a website or anything that's serving images, you'll love this automatic mobile content optimization. It optimizes images automatically so that there's a copy of the image for every size screen. Your site will load faster on any device and look great. Now, the other thing that was important to us, especially because we were a new podcast network, we didn't really know what the bandwidth was going to be like from day to day, month to month. CacheFly was really flexible with us. They gave us flexible month-to-month billing for as long as we needed. And then once we kind of got a handle on when we're going to use bandwidth and how, we got discounts for fixed terms. And the thing is, you get the same thing. The key is you design your contract when you switch to CacheFly. CacheFly delivers rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs, allows you to shield, we've been doing this for a while now, shield your site content in their cloud. So we just upload shows to the CacheFly cloud, which ensures a 100% cache hit ratio. That's fantastic. And with CacheFly's elite managed packages, you're going to get the same VIP treatment we do. Which is, I could say, great. You get a dedicated account manager who will be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation, reliable 24/7 support when you need it. Look, learn how you can get your first month free at cachefly.com/twit. Let me say it again. Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com/twit. Thank you, CacheFly. As we near our 20th anniversary, there are some people and groups I'm super grateful to. Of course, you, Paul, you've been with us since practically the beginning. CacheFly's been with us since the beginning. April 13th is the 20th anniversary Twit. And one of the things we're going to do is, and we're getting some really great submissions. We've asked people who've been watching for a long time, how they discovered Twit, how they watched Twit, just to send us a little short video of yourself and tell us a little something about yourself, because I want to honor we got a great community, and I want to honor the community.
That's really
and we've
cool.
been getting some great ones. I just got a guy in Canada riding his combine harvester.
Nice. I love it.
He's out doing his farming, and he's watching Windows Weekly in the combine. I think that's so cool. So if you've got, if you've got an interesting story to tell, somebody wrote me a poem. There was a guy on a boat. People from all over the world, send us a video. There's a couple ways you could do this. One, just post it on your favorite social media. We watch them all, and hashtag Twit or @Twit. Maybe @Twit would be better. And that way we'll know to look for it and we'll find it. You can also email us, email me, leo@leoville.com, and send me the video, or better yet, don't send me the video, but a link to the video on OneDrive or wherever you store it. And then that way we're going to get as many as we can, and we'll kind of put them into the show on April 13th. That's coming up just a couple of weeks. All right, back to the show we go. Microsoft 365. Is that Windows?
No.
That's everything but Windows.
No.
Yeah, pretty much.
Windows is in there too.
Actually, Windows is part of. Yeah,
you do get a license.
That's why I don't understand what that name means. Am I weird?
No, you're not. This shouldn't be so confusing, but it is.
It's why they switched from Office 365 to Microsoft.
Yeah,
it's Office, but it also includes Windows.
Well, yeah. So Microsoft 365 is that umbrella term for all this stuff. Does include the commercial versions of Microsoft 365 can include licenses for Windows.
Okay, never mind.
I know.
I should never ask the question.
Well, but to that point, part of the financial reporting change that Microsoft made almost a year ago was to reorganize where that money from Windows goes. And now the money, the revenues that are generated for Windows through Microsoft 365 actually go to Microsoft 365, or are reported as part of that business. They're not reported as part of Windows, which they used to be. Okay. So further confusing matters. We have a metric ton of AI news today, and some of it is Microsoft 365 related, as it would be. So I put it into the Microsoft 365 section, I guess. So we'll start with that. The first two are topics that are not exactly near and dear to my heart, but I think are still interesting. And the first is that Microsoft has released 2 reasoning agents. I have a note almost to myself about this later in the show, in the AI section, I'm sure, but something about this, when you think about AI in the recent era and how quickly it's evolved, we had AI chatbots. And then Satya Nadella, especially to me, actually. I mean, everyone's talking about this. The next wave, so to speak, is these agents, right? These AI services that will work on your behalf. You prompt it to do whatever it is. It goes off and does something. It comes back when it completes that task, or maybe it has a question, whatever. Fine. Funny thing happened on the way to that future. DeepSeek. Oh, look at me. I said it right. Came out with what we now call a reasoning model, where it actually kind of shows you how it's thinking through solving the problem you asked it. And people love this. So now everything's going reasoning. We'll talk about that. But what Microsoft has just announced is it is literally 2 reasoning agents. So it's like you've got your reasoning in my AI agent kind of a thing or whatever. And these are agents that use reasoning models to do multi-step, whatever it might be on your behalf. So one of them is called researcher, which you can probably figure out what that means. And one of them is called analyst. These are very much for Microsoft 365 commercial customers using Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? And so, we've seen these kind of things. Like deep research is one of those big terms that comes out of AI these days, where you can use this AI for really complex tasks. This is a quote from, Chief Marketing Officer, AI at Work, Jared Spataro, who said, you could use this to build a detailed go-to-market strategy based on the context of all your work data and broader competitive data from the web. Yikes. AI is not going to take your job. It's going to take everyone's job. It's going to be one AI, because at what point what's the role I have in this? And then there's the second one, which is what, Paul? Analyst, right? So same thing,
right?
You're pointing at a lot of data, and it comes back and it analyzes. It's kind of like a big data version of what is the summary of this document. It can do visualization, look at purchase patterns, all this stuff, revenue projection, et cetera. And yikes. So of course, right? Google's doing something like this. OpenAI is doing something like this. This is going to be, this is what we get.
It's a race to automate portions of white collar work.
Yep. Yeah, this was, I don't know if I must reference it somewhere in the show, but I wrote an article the past week about AI and web browsers. Yeah, we will talk about this, but I don't want to give this away for later, but it basically boils down to, if AI is going to do everything that I do, what am I going to do with all this free time I'm going to have all this time? Like, it's getting kind of weird. Like, I'll be like, hey, I could. Oh, you got it? Okay, sorry. Like, I don't even think I have a role anymore. Like, at some point,
do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's already happening right now. Yeah. There's this, obviously there's always this spectrum of responses to this kind of thing. And there will always have those people like, AI is fake. It's a fraud. It's not real. It's not that serious. And then there are the people who are like, oh my God, this is Terminator. It's happening. They're taking over the world, and obviously we're going to be somewhere in the middle of that. But, there's an interesting discussion going on about what a artificial generalized intelligence actually is. Last year, sometime, Microsoft announced something called Microsoft Copilot for security.
Yeah. First it was Security Copilot, then it was Copilot for security.
Yeah. My comment at the time was, why don't you just make your products all secure? We don't need this. And they were like, no, here's an idea. Why don't we make 6 or 15 of them? And so now it's called Microsoft Security Copilot.
Right.
And it is actually a suite of AI agents. Microsoft made 6 of them. Its partners made 5 of them. And I think that's all I'm going to say about this, because seriously, dear God, Microsoft.
No, it's gonna continue. I've talked to other teams now. Like, each team contributes into this space, and I got to say, from an administrative perspective, this is really interesting, because most admins aren't full-time security people and don't have a full-time security person. They put on the tinfoil hat once a month.
No, you're 100% right. Leo said something earlier, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was, and I said, well, we're going to talk about this kind of thing later. And it was something about writing an AI. And I think part of the resistance to AI is that people have these kind of, they have egos about, and they're like, I am the person that does the writing if I'm a writer, or the coding if I'm a coder, or the adminning if I'm an ad, whatever. Oh. And whatever that word is. But yeah, the truth is, we're all good at things and we're all not so good at other things. And, if you kind of accept the notion, I think it's correct that AI ultimately will save you time. Yep. How about using it to save time doing something either that you cannot stand doing, or you're not good at, or whatever it is. And so, yes, in this case, in the same way that you would go into the Cursor AI editor and say, examine my code base and tell me where I could improve the code quality or reduce redundancy or whatever it might be. You could do that with security, look at my environment, and then have it come back and say, okay, well, Bob over there doesn't have 2FA going, or, whatever it might be. Right. And so, yeah, I mean,
well, and we've done this show on Run As where it's exactly that. What's the most pressing, your view of my Azure tenant? What's my most pressing security risk? What should I address now?
The most basic and commonly said thing about IT and this sort of work is these are people that want to be proactive but are always reactive because stuff happens.
They're in the pounding surf.
Yeah. And this is the type of thing, it's not the only thing, but is maybe a way to get to that ideal where the stuff that's hard or bad or maybe is lurking in the background you don't even know about, whatever it might be, that might later cause that reactive thing, is something that AI could help you with.
Yeah. You do a bit, you get a little bit of time to do a little bit of preventative work. And the fact that this tool would help you focus in on the best preventative work you could do.
Right.
So maybe the pounding surf subsides a bit and you have a little more time.
Yeah. So the non-AI version of this that I think if anyone has ever done or is right now doing any kind of admin IT pro type work is the best practices work that Microsoft used to build into its management consoles and probably still does. Right. So you have this kind of list of things that you can go through manually and say, well, okay, does everyone get 2FA? And you're like, check, green, but but now this is something that will do it for you. And not that it will necessarily set everything correctly, but rather that it will come back with that report, like you were saying, and say, look, this is what's wrong. You need to focus on this. Like this is job one, whatever that thing is. Super helpful. Because before, in the pre best practices era, Microsoft had best practices, but they were written in books or they were written in documents. And, you would have to, as the admin, like, all right, and then they built it in the product and now they're building it into AI. And now, and in theory, although I haven't seen an example of this yet, but you're going to have a just do it button sooner or later, right? That it's going to say, hey, you've not configured conditional access to restrict by geography. I'm going to this whole show is going to culminate in my second app pick, which is what you just described, but for developers, because one of the choices you get when you use Copilot, GitHub Copilot or the Cursor AI, whatever it is this, rewrite this. And then it shows it to you and you can look at it, do it. I mean, most of the time you're going to be like, oh, just do it. I wrote this garbage and you made it look pretty and small, and it does the same thing. Do it.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think you're right. I think you're correct. Because and this is the hurdle. I think we all have to get over collectively. Like whatever it is you're doing in life, like wherever you're at, you may think I'm the guy.
As the cloud came along, the guys who like spinning screwdrivers got really grumpy, but there were other things from the do. And as Exchange Online became obviously the better way to go, and we moved all our Exchange workloads. Those Exchange guys are still working. They're not doing the same job, but they still take care of mail. They just take care of it in a different way, and actually, arguably, a better mail system as a consequence because they aren't wrestling with DAX and distribution blocks and all of those sorts of things. That's already been dealt with.
Yeah, and if you were actually that Exchange guy, God help you. Your life consisted of 2 to 3 year cycles where you spent that whole time doing whatever migration and fixing all the problems. And they were like, time to go do it again.
Now it's time for the next version. Yeah. Thank God they're only every 3 years because that's how long it takes to get it stable.
Exactly. Whew. All right. Now we can bring it down a notch. This one kind of came out of the blue. And I have to say, I'm not 100% on board with this. I don't quite understand it. Microsoft in the past week announced what they call companion apps for Microsoft 365 commercial. They run only in Windows 11. They require Windows 11. They're only in preview right now. And so you have to be, I think you have to be in the Microsoft 365 Insider Program beta channel to even access this today. But if you were familiar, well, actually what they look like a little bit is like phone apps. So they're like these little mini apps, the companion apps for specific things. Today, those things are file search and people. And, you could make the argument, we have tools for those things, right? Microsoft is right now building out file search in Windows 11 for the upteenth time, in this case, to handle semantic search with AI. And we'll talk about this later, the OneDrive, Copilot for OneDrive stuff. Why are we doing this kind of thing? Like, what's the point of this? They're not widgets, but they're kind of small focused apps. There was an app called People, remember, in Windows 10, and it's basically disappeared in Windows 11 and now literally has disappeared. But, contact management, right? There are going to be more of these things. These are just the first two.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a threat to me. But I don't know. I'm not really, I don't.
Oh, no, we always need another companion, don't we?
Look, what I'm looking for. Could I have more icons in my taskbar that I don't want or need, So, I mean, they look pretty enough, but when I look at this and I think, A, superfluous, and B, if you're going to do this, it should maybe be in Windows, unless the intention is to put them elsewhere, right? Because not all of your customers use Windows. Right. But I don't think they're ever going to do that. So I don't know.
Well, and you get to who's the team who can build stuff from like this right now. And then, the M365 guys are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. And tied to what we were discussing earlier, I do think there's going to be a kind of, not a comeuppance, but like a consolidation in the future. At some point, we're going to have built out all these different ways to do things. And we're going to want to.
Well, and to be clear, there's already a consolidation happening internally. There are way more of this than you're seeing publicly facing. But I don't disagree. It needs to consolidate more. There is a political game here about who's being the best AI person in the company. Right. So everybody wants to show off their thing.
I didn't put this in the notes for some reason. I must have missed it. But one of the other things that happened in the space just the other day, maybe yesterday, was the new Outlook, which I think we can all agree everyone loves. There's no problems there. Everyone wishes they could just roll it out faster. Microsoft is now making it a part of the default install of the desktop apps for Microsoft 365 in new deployments. This is going to be controversial in some circles. It's going to be installed alongside the other Outlook. I mean, if you're on Windows 11, which everyone will be, you're going to have this app already. This is another example. I don't quite get it, but I almost wonder if they're doing it just to see how it goes see what happens, because they're giving admins the capability through policy to disable this or to just have one or the other or to have them both. Like, you have a choice, but the default, unless you change something, is that you'll actually get both. And maybe they're just hoping, maybe it will go better than they think.
Everything's going to be fine. It'll be fine.
It's going to be fine. So I mentioned Copilot for OneDrive. I don't follow the commercial space maybe as closely as I could. I was under the impression that this would have shipped at some point. It has not. So they're oddly, even though they talked about it in the consumer sense only vaguely and much later than they did in commercial, Microsoft is starting to roll out Copilot in OneDrive for people who have a Microsoft 365 family or personal subscriptions to the consumer side, only for the account holder, right? Which is something we've seen with the other Copilot stuff. So if you are the guy paying or the person paying for the family version or personal, sometime over the next, whatever period of time on the web only, because again, these things roll out how they roll out. Eventually, this will be in Windows. Well, that's coming in. We just talked about this. This is coming in Windows too. But you'll be able to use Copilot in OneDrive for web at first to do things like summarize documents. Compared to
uses OneDrive for web, right? When it's quote unquote built into Windows.
It's going to be it's going to be in both, right? But this is to me like. With my own kind of very basic application development stuff that I do, I look at this and I think to myself, you're doing this everywhere, Microsoft, with these Copilot features. Like, they must have what I would call a giant switch statement, but you can think of it as like giant if then else statements or whatever, where it's like, is he a Copilot whatever customer? No. Okay. Does he have a Microsoft 365 subscription? Yeah. Yes. Which kind does he have? This one. Okay. Is he the guy paying for it? No. Then you don't get this. Like these features, like just the code just to manage what people see.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be a hairball at this point, everywhere in the Microsoft, environment. Right. And it's only going to get worse. But anyway, I'm interested to see something like this happening at all. Like I said, I believe as soon as April.
Still, the question is, what will it do on your personal account? Like, what do you want to? What is a Copilot's role on your OneDrive?
What I would want from it is for it to, at one point, basically, essentially index my whatever part of OneDrive I tell it to index.
Where's that picture of my dog?
Well, yeah, or in my case, like I have 30 years worth of documents that I've written about Microsoft and Windows, or whatever, right? Yeah. So I want to go to it and say, because I have to do this research myself manually. This is what we're just talking about, right? I want to have a little chat thing come up and say, okay, give me lay out the entire history of like OneDrive and all the times I've written about it, and give me links so I can go find the original documents and summarize this on maybe year to year or something, and then have it, spit that thing out and say, okay, now I can use this as easy reference to write whatever it is I'm writing. That is not one of those features, right? So I think that is something that will, what do we call this when you? I've there's so many AI terms I just forgot. When you train the AI only on your specific data, that is called grounding. Right. I want basically a version of whatever it is, Copilot, that's grounded on just my data.
Right.
But no, this is pretty basic stuff. If you look at the rewriting stuff that's in Notepad, which I think we can all agree is a fairly basic application, it's kind of on that level. Mm-hmm. So you can select up to 5 documents and summarize them. You can select up to 5 documents and compare them. I think it can do a table output, but I think the best use for that, well, maybe one of the good use cases would be, I have 2 different versions of this and we've kind of lost track of what's what. We can compare them, like that kind of thing. Or just ask it questions, which is what I'm talking about. So, but it's grounding on 1 to 5 documents, right? I have probably 100,000. I don't know what it is, whatever the number is, a lot, right?
Probably not what would be a normal consumer range.
Yep. No, I completely understand why I might have to pay for this. Like if that's what it, if it has to be a commercial, whatever, I'll do that. That's fine. But I would like to see that happen. Anyway, I'm surprised to see this coming to consumers this soon, but that's good. And then we can finally squeeze out into the non-AI part of the Office or Microsoft 365 stuff.
Wow.
I know this is not a big deal, and I didn't even realize this was possible. But if you're working on a Microsoft Word, Excel, or PowerPoint document on the web version of those apps, you can share them to people using a link, right? Because it has to be saved in OneDrive. And the person you're sharing them with, one of the options you have as the person sharing is they don't have to have a Microsoft account. They don't have to sign into anything. As long as they have this link, they can view the file. Now, if you want them to edit it or leave comments, yes, they have to, reasonably, they have to have a Microsoft account. So they've added this ability to the mobile versions of those apps on iPhone and iPad. So I assume they also mean what I would call the Microsoft 365 app, or maybe that's the Microsoft 365 Copilot app now, where Word, Excel, PowerPoint are in the app as well, not just standalone, right? But it doesn't say that explicitly, but I assume that's what they mean. But yeah, it's just a way to, from those versions of the client, share anonymously, essentially. So in a read-only format. Microsoft is clinging to this. The Office stuff is like the final frontier of giving up on, all this proprietary stuff they have. But okay. And then this is not actually new news per se, but Microsoft reminded customers through the Microsoft 365 Message Center, which is where I saw this, that OneNote for Windows 10, as we now call it, I think that might be its 7th name. I don't remember how many permutations it went through anymore, is going to reach end of support in October. And if you're in an organization,
and this is the wheel version, right?
Used to be, yeah. That's the one that's funny. You remember that, yeah. So, right, that's an important part of the history of this app. So originally,
it was the Metro experiment.
MX, exactly. No,
it's funny. I saw the other day, that Microsoft's terminating support for Windows 10 October 25th.
Yep. Yeah, and this is they want people to be outraged again because we haven't calmed down yet from the new Outlook or from Copilot, but this one was years in the making. So
we knew.
And there's a whole convoluted history to this app because it came up as the one of 2 Metro apps they made for the Office team did for Windows 8. And then when Windows 10 came around, they were going to redo Office as these, at the time, universal apps. It had a kind of a radical radial menu, which is what Richard quickly referenced earlier.
But just to be clear, OneNote for Windows 11 is not gone.
Well, OneNote for Windows Desktop still exists. So 2016 was going to be the last version. And then whatever the word, and after 2021, probably it came back. And then at some point, they made that the primary client again and deprecated the old version, the OneNote for Windows 10, the one we're talking about now, and unifying the clients, whatever that means. And they didn't really have whatever. Anyway,
so what's going to be left?
OneNote for desktop.
There's that radial menu, that weird radial menu.
It was cool. I'm not saying it was better or whatever, but it was a team of people looking at something touch-based and pen-based and saying, how could we do something here?
That made sense on the Surface Studio because it had that radial dial.
With the pen, yeah.
Yeah, and the pen, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was context sensitive and it was a good idea. It didn't last, but it was interesting. Anyway, it's going away. So
and you and Mary Jo used OneNote forever on the show.
Yeah, and I actually preferred OneNote for Windows 10 for a long time. But on either client, we always had those sync issues where we couldn't edit a note in real time.
That's problematic.
It was a huge problem. We put up that for years.
Team app to not be able to use it is
So it's one time my mother called me and she said, "Hey, I sent you an email. Did you get it?" And we used to have to do that version of that. Like she'd text me and say, "Hey, let me know when you're out of the notes so I can get in there." And it's stupid. Anyway, they tried. Anyway, I use Notion now, so there you go.
Yeah. Whatever. And of course, there's always Loop.
Yeah, so I use Notion now. And
too soon?
No, I don't. No, I don't. No,
we were so excited about Loop when they announced it, and it just.
I'm open. We'll see, but right now, no.
All right, let's talk AI.
Yeah. So. We're pressed for time, so I'm going to go through this very quickly.
Okay.
A to Z.
I won't slow you down. We got an AI show in an hour. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to skip over my little editorial thing about agentic browsers and blah, 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 because we don't really have anything there that's happening per se. But Sam Altman announced a leadership shift. He's not stepping down as CEO, but he's off putting a lot of his CEO responsibilities to 3 other people, especially one of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, and to focus on product and strategy, right? This company's trying to go from a nonprofit to a full so he's going to do all that.
Is that because 4.5 was a little disappointed at people when people are saying, "Where's 5.0?"
I don't.
There's pressure on them, isn't there?
Right. Yeah, of course. But the thing is, I feel like this is true of all the big AI companies right now. Just when you think like, oh, someone else just leapt ahead, they announced something the next day, and it's like, yeah. Because the other thing they did, it might have been the same day actually, was they announced a GPT 4.0 based image generation capability for ChatGPT, which is like next level. It's amazing.
You've used it?
I've only seen it. I've not used it, but but it looks amazing, and I don't know. I think they're going to be okay. But yeah, but every time you see anything from OpenAI where it's like, oh, we're switching stuff around, you're like, here we go again. I don't know. I don't trust them in a way, but I think they're going to be fine.
There's got to be such intense pressure at this point.
Yep. Google is adding AI search to Gmail. You'll be able to toggle it off if you don't like it, but based on my experience with AI search and photos, you'll want to switch to a different email client because it's terrible. So I don't know. Maybe that will get better over time. But right now, I got to say that stuff does not work. And I'm not like an AI skeptic at all. It's just that stuff is garbage. Google back in want to say February released the Gemini 2.0 models across the whole family. They just released the first 2.5 model, which is a reasoning model, which they call a thinking model, but in experimental, it's only for paying customers, but over time we'll get more of the 2.5 stuff. So they're kind of going in that direction. Today, Amazon announced a feature called Interests for its mobile app on iPhone and mobile web app. Select subset of U.S. customers only. More U.S. customers later this year. I, for some reason, have it, even though I'm in Mexico, so I was able to take a look at it. The idea is that you can use natural language to do a product search, and then it will come back to you later when things change. Like if there's a price change or a sale or, something, a new product in that category, whatever it is. I can't tell you how good it is right now because it just came out and it's going to take a few months to see where that stuff goes. But that looks potentially interesting. Apple is through Mark Gurman is probably going to be bringing Apple Intelligence to its iPhone and AirPods, but that will be through the iPhone, right? Because these things don't, it's a processor from a box of Cracker Jacks, so there's no way it's going to be able to do that on the device. But they'll have cameras and other sensors and things and fun. We don't have time really to go in depth on this, but Apple is being sued for advertising Apple Intelligence features that didn't exist. I think it's kind of nonsense, honestly, because if you go back to WWDC and last year and look at what they announced, they've actually released everything except for this conversational Siri.
It was
feature.
the ads, though, that were all over the NFL, the Bella Ramsey ad that still it can't do.
Yep.
And
look,
I don't think it's a reasonable lawsuit, but Apple is getting some egg on their face for promising and not delivering.
Oh, for sure. And they're doing a shift. They're shifting executives around, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's a big deal because they made a big deal when they stole John Giandrea away from Google. He was their AI guy,
and now he's been pushed aside.
Out because he hasn't been able to make it work. And they brought in weirdly the fixer,
the guy, right?
So they had Kim.
Well, the guy from Vision
Mike
Pro.
Rockwell. He did Vision Pro, right? But he wanted to quit before, and he doesn't strike me as a techie kind of guy. He's more an operations guy. I think they're in trouble. I don't think they've got anybody.
I think their trouble is self-inflicted in the sense that they're going to do this in the most privacy faithful way, and that's hard.
Maybe that's hard. Yeah, the so-called context-aware AI that
the
they
thing
promised.
Is, you've used Siri. You've used it by mistake most of the time. It's terrible.
It's
literally, just today, I'm on the bed. We have to go. We had to eat lunch early today because of the time shift. And when do you want to leave? And I said, I don't know, about 2 hours from now. I was joking.
Yeah.
And then Siri goes, okay, I'll set an alarm for 2 hours. And I'm like, you idiot.
No,
I never said you.
No, I didn't want that.
It's the only time it ever
Siri,
comes up.
What month is it?
Well, it depends on where you live, Leo. I don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, now that's the worst thing. I said it right into the phone. The Siri over my in the other room answered.
This is the part of the demo
can't tell what months it
where
is.
Steve Jobs is like, and it just works. Yeah.
By the way, Darren Oki, who is one of our adepts, AI adepts, says he has used the image generation in 4.0, and it's very good. And it's especially good to make small changes to an existing image.
That's actually so as good as the whatever image generation stuff is. I often want to go back and say, this one's good, but could you,
Right.
And actually that's a good capability.
Yeah. That's something a lot of people want to do. It's basically photo retouching.
Yeah. WWDC is scheduled now for June 9 and that week of June 9. I'm sure there'll be some AI in the keynote, but I don't think it's going to be like last year. We'll see.
Is there going to be an apology tour? Is it going to be, what are they going to do? They have,
my version of this is where they go, look at me. Now we're talking about this.
Yeah.
They're going to
pay no attention to that AI
iOS 19.
There.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll have to mention it, but I don't think
see
as much. Opera upgraded actually 4 of their browsers today. The Opera one, Opera GX, and Opera, what's it called? The little one.
The Calm one?
The Calm one. Damn it. Opera, what's it called?
Opera Sleepy? Dopey? Grumpy?
That's it.
Doc.
And with a bunch of new Aria AI features, including like tab management where you can speak or more typically type, natural language, all the stuff you would expect. New UI on Opera for Android for Aria. Not iPhone yet, but that I'm sure is coming. So
nice.
That was This Week in AI in about 5 minutes. I don't know.
You know what? We got a 3-hour show coming up. You don't have to get it all in. There's going to be plenty.
I was actually kind of surprised as I went through the show notes, like how much there was.
It's all that anybody's talking about right now. It's all anybody's talking about.
It's happening. I mean, it's happening.
Well, that was my question earlier. Is it going to happen, or are we going to 5 years or 10 years down the road go, well, that was a bomb.
No,
that was a bust.
No, I really think it's
going to happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. You know what did happen?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, a little credit to Steve Ballmer for this. The Xbox.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So there's actually a bunch of stuff going on with the Xbox. GDC, they've started talking about stuff for later in the year, et cetera, et cetera. But there's been hints of this kind of stuff. Use the Xbox app as kind of the UI on Windows for games, and they want to work with all the different stores and so forth. And they put up a screenshot somewhere that had Steam in the Xbox UI. Steam is not on Xbox, or Steam is not available through the Xbox app, I should say, on PC. And the thought here is that this is tied to, they want the Xbox app to act as the hub for these other stores. So if you have games from the Epic Game Store, Steam, whatever it might be, that maybe you're on one of those little gaming handhelds, and that's the UI. Like, that stuff will all come up through the app.
Do gamers want that? That actually does seem convenient. I guess.
If you were an Xbox, meaning Xbox platform, not console, but focused player, yeah. I mean, the two-edged sword of the PC in many ways is the availability of all these stores where you can get different stuff, and then the weirdness of having to remember, like, okay, I bought this game where, and how do I go get? Like, it'd be nice to have one place for that, right? This is the dream everywhere. It's the dream for Apple TV type devices. It was the dream Microsoft had for Windows Phone. Like, we'll just have like one texting interface, and everyone was like, yeah, that sounds great, except for the companies that make those apps and services, right? So we'll see. But this is, we'll see. That's all I'll say there. So I haven't had time to process this too much, but Xbox Cloud Gaming is a feature of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, or I guess Game Pass Ultimate we're calling now. Sometime in the past 6 months-ish, they added the ability to stream your own games. Remember, this is something I've been promising for years. Today, they've added 7 new games to this, including the just-released Assassin's Creed Shadows, which we'll talk about briefly later.
Nice.
And blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's that. Back to the notes. Where are we? Oh, yeah. So Minecraft had an event, had a Minecraft live event over the weekend. I tried to watch this, and I found the host to be kind of tough to deal with, but they remember they were going to do this big ray tracing update thing, and then they kind of didn't, and now there are third-party things to do it. So they are actually going to make a bunch of graphical updates to this game, starting with something this year called the Vibrant Visuals Upgrade, which doesn't make it not look like, it's not, it
it's
doesn't
still
go
blocky.
like, it doesn't go 8/16-bit or anything like that. It's faithful to the graphics, which I think is what people want.
And there are add-ons that will make it look like a modern game.
Yes.
But I think you want Minecraft to look like Minecraft.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think this looks beautiful, like the thing that they're talking. Talking about. It's worth watching. If you go look up Minecraft Live on YouTube, there's a segment you can see for this. It's really nice looking. You can not install it. You can turn it off. If you do install it, you don't have to get it. The initial version will be on Minecraft Bedrock Edition on selected platforms, which I don't know what that means. They haven't said yet, but it will be coming to other Minecrafts.
It looks mostly like a lighting update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So one of the things is, like, in the video, they show, like, when you build a house, you have glass windows. Now the light will shine in and light up whatever's in its path accurately, right? Like a game created 30 years ago. But it's Minecraft. I mean, whatever. It
makes it prettier. I like it.
So.
Yeah.
Microsoft is this is on the console. So the Xbox dashboard, which, in many ways might be coming closer to the Xbox app on Windows and vice versa, right? But in the Xbox Insider program, they're testing this kind of a new game hubs interface that basically gives you everything about that game, including like all of the download, the DLC and whatever you can get for it, and help with the game, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever. Okay. Like, I don't know. They just do, this is someday we'll figure out Xbox, I guess is the plan. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is the game they released back in December, is coming to the PS5, which we already knew, but now we know it's coming on April 17th. I think that's all the neus. I am trying to think if there's anything else to this. No, I think that's it.
That was perfect timing.
All right.
Okay. Very nicely done, Paul.
And then I didn't write this up, but I'm kind of interested in this because the latest Assassin's Creed game, which is called Assassin's Creed Shadows, takes place in Japan. Looks awesome, right? Has been delayed a couple of times. Finally came out past week, a little less than a week ago. Apparently had over 2 million players in the first 2 days.
Wow.
So it's doing better than every Assassin's Creed game except for the one that came out during the pandemic, which is Valhalla, right? And that one was the perfect storm of, timing and all that stuff. But it's doing better than basically every other game in the series. So
it's massively multiplayer. It's not.
Yeah, it's different.
It's not a single player.
Yeah, they've tried to get this. They waited to get it right. So it's kind of
cool.
It's a different approach,
and you have all of the different time.
Yeah, it looks good to me. I thought I was gonna. I have Game Pass. I'm like, obviously, I'm just gonna install this in Game Pass. Game Pass is the one place it is not. You can get it on PC through Steam, Epic Game Store, and I believe through Xbox/Microsoft. Obviously, you can get it on the consoles. I don't think it's on PS5. No, it is on PS5. I'm sorry, it is on PS5. Yeah, but it's going kind of blockbuster. It's good. Like, I'm glad to, or not blockbuster. It's doing great. Like, I think it's in a solid place. Like, there were fears that this thing might have been delayed a couple of times too many, and maybe we were done. And actually, it seems like it's doing good. So I'm kind of happy for that. I'd like to play this game.
I showed a video. I may have been mistaken about. I don't know if that video was the new one or a montage of old ones.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
you showed
the top 10.
I was gonna say the scene you showed was like a Roman thing, and I was like,
So the new one is all Japan, right?
Yeah, but it's all like there's much more going on with it. Like, most of the previous games were really kind of consistent. So the Odyssey, the one that I think was the one that took place in, or was that Origins? I'm losing track of which one's which. But the Egypt one, Egypt, right? So this one though, it's like all kinds of different terrain and weather. There's snow and rain. There's like swamps and mountains, and like they're really trying to make it.
It looks big, great. All right, here we go.
It looks.
I have real video now. If I can pull it up, I have real video. This is the new game. They're showing. This is comparing. You know what? Something's wrong with this stream because it's all blocky.
It's all blocky and glitchy, but.
This is not right.
But it has, all the kind of familiar elements, climbing buildings and swinging from building to building and assassinating people. Like in this one, they go through one of those paper walls and stab the guy. It looks cool.
It's also Ubisoft's last chance, right? Like they've had some serious failures in a row. Like this is it for them.
I honestly think this is them proving they can still do it for some sale to someone. Hey, Microsoft, I don't know if it's too soon, but maybe you could buy Ubisoft. Probably not.
They bought everything else.
I don't think they need any more. God, it was so hard for them to get Blizzard that it seems risky to do any more at all.
Yep.
There is a big fuss about the game because the male character is black in feudal Japan. Although that was based on a historical character, except for that part where the historical character wasn't a samurai. There was a thing where
the premier or whatever whoever leads Japan now came to this company and said, you got to make some changes to this because I guess you could go into a temple and destroy anything, and they were like, you can't let the people just destroy everything, and so I guess like half the stuff in there you can destroy and half you cannot. But
what it was one of the characters went in and one of the players went and killed all the priests in a temple. Mm-hmm. And then there was a big fuss about this is bad, and so it's like, okay, well, we won't let you kill priests in temples. And it's just a weird asymmetrical
cultural thing. It's fine. Like it's fine. Like I mean, to me, this is fine. Like you want to be correct, with that country. It's fine.
But Skull and Bones, like Far Cry 6, they've had a lot of fails. They're running out of money.
The last several Far Cries are like whatever. This is a game.
Well, and the problem was Far Cry 4 was so incredibly good, like it was going to be tough to make it anyway.
Yeah,
but 6 was bad.
Yeah. I think it was 5 I tried. It was the one I almost played all the way through on Stadia. It was like a combination of terrible game and terrible, whatever.
Just Stadia.
Try to do it.
Stadia. Oh man. Yeah. I think I still have my Asterisk or whatever. What was the Amazon one? Asterisk subscription.
Oh, Amazon's still around. The
Luna, that's it.
Yeah. No, that's still kicking around. In fact, Luna is one of the places you can get Assassin's Creed, the new one. Yeah, it's on. That's one of the stores you can get it in if you're that stupid. But I don't recommend that. But that's fine.
But wait a minute. The EU said streaming gaming was the next big thing.
That's right.
I feel like when we discussed this, that it was very clear this was not going to be the next big
You
thing.
debunked it, I believe. All right. Back of the book is just around the corner. We're going to get you your tips, your picks, your app of the weekend. Yes, a little bit of brown liquor just for you. From, looks like this is Dutch. I would
Belgian.
say. Belgian.
Dun, dun,
Oh,
dun.
yeah. It's Flemish. We'll get to the back of the
I
book.
got to crane my screen there.
Just messed that up in just a bit. But first, if you enjoy the hijinks, and I know you do here on Windows Weekly and the other shows we do, I want to invite you to join the club. I'm talking about Club Twit, $7 a month. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. You wouldn't even get this pitch. You get, of course, access to the Club Twit Discord, which is a heck of a hang. A lot of fun. It's where people go to talk about the shows and watch the shows during the shows. But it's also a place you can go at any time of the day or night to find some nice, geeky people. I'm in the Bracket Cities section that we just created. Chocolate Milk Mini Sip said we had to have that. We have a Wordle. We have Let's Play. We have a couple of Minecraft servers in Let's Play. So there's more than just the shows. We also have special events coming up. Friday, it's the AI Users Group. Anthony Nielsen does this. Anthony, I'm going to be a little bit late for that, but I missed it last time. I don't want to miss it. This is where people like Darren and Anthony and all of our regular club members come in and talk about how they're using AI tips, prompts, that kind of thing. That's coming up Friday, the AI User Group. Club only. We also have the photo time with Chris Marquardt on April 3rd. That's a week from tomorrow. Home Theater Geeks recording. Micah's Crafting Corner. Micah has moved on from the miniature kitchen creation. He's now going to do Lego plants. So if you bring your Lego or your knitting or your painting or whatever it is you're coding and join a kind of cozy little hang with Micah, that's April 16th coming up. We're doing another coffee segment with the coffee geek Mark Prince. Liz Happy Beans will be joining us. She's no. She's an expert. So, on beans. So we'll talk about that. Anyway, this is just an example of why you might want to join Club Twit. I mean, all of that for $7. That's pretty good deal. If you're interested, find out more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up today. It also, most importantly, makes it possible for us to keep doing the shows we do, to keep the people employed, keep the lights on. It really helps us out in the long run. So please, twit.tv/clubtwit and join the fun. Paul, back of the book time, app or tip. I guess we'll start with a tip of the week.
A couple of tips. PC Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate both have among their kind of list of perks something called in-game benefits. It's like games with benefits. It started as paid games only, and then they added some free games, like free-to-play games that have in-game benefits, and now they've added a bunch more. And it looks like I had a hard time finding out what this even meant, right? Because this is like one of those kind of esoteric word features you don't really see that much. And it turns out that was not me. It's hard. They really don't document this very well. So now they're updating the Xbox UI in the app and then on the console so that you can better find these perks and find out what they are. So this is a list of perks. They've added a bunch of new games that have perks. So when you're a member of one of these subscriptions, you get these additional features. So it could be things like levels or outfits that a character might wear, or weapons, or whatever it might be, like things you would normally have to earn in the game, as you play, you can get just for being a subscriber. It's like cheating. It's fun. And then Amazon is having a spring sale right now. So we have our little page about that, but it's probably a bunch of this stuff, and definitely worth looking at. So if we're holding off on whatever device purchase, especially in electronics, a bunch of that stuff's on sale.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So in the app space, two things. Google Drive for Windows is now out, generally available on Windows on ARM. It was been in beta since, I think, November. I've never had any problems with it. I use it every single day. It's been great, but now it's generally available. So if you are on like a Gmail, like a personal Google account or Google Workspace, it's everywhere. So that's happening. That's good. And then I wish I don't have it in front of me, but I keep mentioning this Cursor AI editor. And this is the thing I said earlier, but we're going to come back to this. I'm not going to go on and on because I want to make sure Richard has time here. But this tool is actually kind of amazing. So there's a lot of like program repair AI type things, right? Like GitHub Copilot, which is great. You could just have a window, with Anthropic or ChatGPT, also fine. Sometimes though, that's a little bit of a work, right? And so I know like on the Mac, which I've not tried, they're integrating ChatGPT with programming tools like Xcode, right? So that you run these things side by side and they interact and they understand each other. With Cursor, what you can do is open the folder that contains your project. And depending on the language and the framework or whatever you're using, you might be using Visual Studio Code anyway, and that's what this is based on. So that works normally. It's great. I use the thing I'm working on right now is just full Visual Studio, but I can still open the project in this editor, and then I could just say, hey, I would like this to be more efficient. I would like to improve the code quality. I want to reduce the dependency, or not. I'm sorry, the redundancies that are in here because I know I'm reusing code in too many places, et cetera. So I just before the show, I did this with my the app I'm working on, and it gave me this enormous, excellent to-do list, which is the second time I've done this. Before I did it, I tried to do it for a specific part of the app. I ended up doing it for the whole version of the whole app, but that was not the latest version of my app. And so since then, I've incorporated a lot of the changes that suggested before, and now I have this thing that it spit out, and it is astonishing. It is so good. I'm going to see if I can use it for free. You can use it for free. I mean, you can use it. It has a free tier.
A lot of people are raving about this lately.
I'm already kind of blown away by the AI coding stuff. Like it's been really good. But the ability to, the question I asked in the beginning was, I said, this is what this thing does. It's C#, it's WPF. This is what it's trying to do.
It's not Common Lisp, I'm sad to say.
Sorry. it's at this point, it's almost as old.
Yeah, really.
It really is. But what I said, I want it to be more efficient. I want the code quality. I had this list of things I wanted, and it said, okay. And it said, okay, it looks like, and it would literally spit stuff out. It says, it looks like you're doing tab management in this file tab. So I see which I am. It looks like you're doing this here, blah, blah. And it was like, bloop. And it took, I want to be generous here, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. It took longer to spit out the text than it did to generate it. Like it was, it's amazing. So I haven't gone through all of it yet, but I can't, you have to, right? You have to I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I'm like, yep. And I don't know. I keep kind of repeating myself, especially on the code side of it. But if you're not using this, maybe not this tool specifically, but AI to assist you in coding, you're doing something wrong at this point. Like you're punching yourself in the face.
Unemployable at this point.
Yeah.
Because the productivity
you really
is so
need
much
to figure
higher.
this out.
Wow. That's kind of amazing.
You got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really good.
And they're just not that hard to get into, right? Like they're everywhere, and you can. So wherever you're currently working, you can use them, and the productivity boost is 30%. Like it's not a little.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a developer in the financial services space. Obviously, there are big concerns there around regulatory requirements and customer data, privacy, et cetera. But they are using GitHub Copilot, and they have specific. I don't know if they're policy. I'm not sure how he just described it to me, but he had the same thing. He's a very cynical person. He kind of went into this like, yeah, whatever. And then he started using it. He was like, oh my God. And he kind of came to me and said, I don't know if you've heard of this. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, I was like, he's like, one time he came, this was 10 years ago or something, but he's like, dude, let me tell you something about Microsoft. I'm like, I'm just going to hold it. Just stop right there. Dude, you have nothing you can tell me about Microsoft. No, but he was, but he is a professional developer. That's what this is his career. And he was like, I can't believe it. And
development is different now.
Yeah. And it's also one of those kind of things like I could have been doing this 6 months or a year ago. Like I wish I had known about this earlier, it's really good.
Well, it wasn't as good 6 months ago. It's really good now.
I'm going to have to try it.
It's a movie target.
I highly recommend that Cursor, especially. But all this stuff is great.
Unfortunately, it doesn't support Lisp either. But I can
probably do it. It doesn't support Lisp.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
It's ironic because Lisp was the first AI language.
You can change the model used on the back end. I mean,
Does it use Tree Sitter? Do you know what it's using as the?
First of all, you're not even speaking English anymore.
Okay.
I think no. I think it's Anthropic on the back end by default.
Yeah, Anthropic knows Common Lisp very
it.
well. I can actually ask Anthropic. Sonnet does a great job coding.
I think you should be able to do it. But definitely just take a look, especially.
I will look at it, yeah.
I think a lot of developers, especially in the web space, are really familiar with Visual Studio Code. So it's you kind of go to
it's VSC. It is. In fact, Darren's saying it's basically there's not much difference between using Copilot in VS Code.
Well, except for me, like I said, I'm sure there are things that kind of do this, but the examining of an entire, in my case, C# Visual Studio 2022, whatever solution, going through every single file and then saying, you should split this into this. This needs to be over here. Like it's giving very specific instructions across the project. Awesome.
I love it that it gives you a to-do list. Like, here's some things you need to work on.
I always thought it was going to be like, I was going to do this method by method. I'm like, here's the method. Here's the add a tab method. How would you make this better? But because it can handle the whole thing, to me, that's like next level.
So you can give it your code base and say, "What can you say? What should I work on next?"
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it gives you a priority list.
That's exactly right. That's why earlier I was like, "This is what I'm going to talk about in the app thing," but for coding, it's exactly that. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I've been asking the Microsoft folks what they're using, and Cloud 3.7 is their preferred, it seems. And then I ask them why. And I almost don't know that they know. Like it may just be a cliquey thing. Like others are using it, so I'll use it.
This is when someone says, you really should use Bing or DuckDuckGo, and you're like, okay. And then you go use it, and you're like, within 2 queries, you're like, nope. It's like, what's wrong? I'm like, no. The answer, and I think that's what the Anthropic Cloud is like. Like you use that, then you go back to whatever Copilot, ChatGPT. I'm just code specific here, and it's like, nope, no, it's that one, and maybe that changes over time, but I think right now that is the case. Yeah, you said 3.7.
Yeah,
is that the latest version? Because there was a point where the previous version was the best one or something, but it shifts.
Yeah, but again, it's like, how do you quantify this? So we've got a .NET Rocks coming now. That's like, how do you measure the quality of an LLM?
Yeah, right. How do you measure your productivity increase? Like, how do you?
Yeah, what's the difference there? And all right, because the thing with going to 3.7, it's the most expensive one too. So there's a lot of self validation here. It's like latest number, highest cost, must be better. Is it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you're starting to take Friday afternoons off every week, maybe that's how you can do it,
So I can any of us are getting to the bottom of our to-do list. Right.
So you're saying I can chat with my code base.
Exactly right. Yep.
So I can say, like, what should I start? What should I work on?
Yeah, what should I work on for? I mean, in my case, I've explained what it is for some reason. I probably don't have to do this.
Right. Oh my God.
See how fast it does this?
Yeah.
And my thing is fairly humongous.
It's funny. Since I gave it the day 1 of Advent of Code, it said, well, since you've completed day 1, the next logical step would be day 2.
Okay. Thanks, Siri. A lot of help.
Okay. That's good.
That's right.
I could add more test cases, optimize the code further.
Oh my God, Siri's talking to me. What's happening?
Oh, no.
I don't even know what's coming.
Let me see. Can I help me optimize the code base? So it does understand Lisp.
Yeah, no, I'm positive.
Why wouldn't it? Because it's using. I didn't realize it was using Anthropic. So there you go.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Look at this. Look at this. Holy moly.
Yep.
So I was always thinking it was just kind of like IntelliSense, but it's more than just auto.
So the most basic functionality that you get from GitHub Copilot is what it's basically IntelliSense. It's like code completion or code correction or whatever you want to call that. IntelliSense, I guess. But you can do this. You can. I do in Visual Studio chat to GitHub Copilot and say blah 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 whatever. But this thing is doing this entire project view, which to me is
kind of a mind-boggling.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Help me.
So next week we'll come back and you will look. A lot of this will be like, oh my God, it's amazing, and maybe you'll find a couple things where you're like, yeah, not really. But I'm curious, like if once you start using this, because I feel like. It's hard to walk away from this.
This would be a great learning tool too, because of course I solved this day 1, probably pretty naively. This is one of the ones I put on I streamed live, so I'm sure it was very nice. And then it says, oh, well, there's some things you can do. You're doing a lot of, we can make the parsing more efficient and so forth. And so it makes some suggestions. And this would be a great way to learn how to write better code.
No, literally, that was my point, was I have whatever the method was, I do 2 loop checks on whatever it is. And I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this more efficiently. And in that case, I don't remember which one it was anymore, but whatever AI, sure enough, half the amount of code, 1 loop, beautiful.
Yeah.
First world problems.
Wow. It's interesting. Yeah. This would be a great tool for becoming a better coder. I still very nervous about having a write code, especially if you don't code, right?
Right. It's great for learning. That's the other thing. So AI is great at explaining, right?
Right.
And actually, I don't know at the bottom of this, but when I just did it earlier, it said, these are specific places we could follow up on if you want more detail.
Right.
Yes,
it said that. Add more optimizations. There are still some possibilities. Wow. I don't code for anything but fun, so this wouldn't make it more fun for me, but maybe for a learning
I don't know. It depends on what you're trying to do, right? I mean, like this the code challenge that you're doing, and so you want to solve it, right? You want to just get the answer, but you might be interested enough in this to say, okay, so I did, I think you just did this basically, I did do this,
right?
And it's
now,
well, here's a more efficient. And you're like, that's really interesting, and then you learn this technique that maybe you can apply later.
It's also good for getting you out of thrashing. Like if you're stuck on a problem, I just can't get these parameters right or anything like that.
Absolutely.
It's great at that.
This is a daily occurrence for me. I'm not a professional or good developer, so I'm always like, so it's wonderful getting over the hump, for me.
Well, let's get over the hump and get to the Run as Radio show for the week.
Indeed.
Yeah. Brought back one of the legends, Jeff Hicks, who's one of the original PowerPoint folks, but best educator in the space, well known. And he had a new book out, so I was happy to have him on to talk a bit about Behind the PowerShell Pipeline. And Jeff really pushed on the ideas around making more maintainable PowerShell. Like it's not enough to just make it work. Can you actually be able to understand what you did when you go back to it in 3 months? And so some commenting, parameter controls, maybe even a bit of testing, just making higher quality PowerShell. And of course, we had to talk about Copilot because Copilot will help you write PowerShell too. So good conversation. And his book is, of course, excellent. It's the best insight you'll get on PowerShell.
What was the name of the book? Real quick.
Behind the PowerShell Pipeline.
Thank you, sir.
Ooh. Yeah, if I were a big Windows user, I would absolutely learn PowerShell. I mean,
it's a superpower.
Yeah, it is a superpower, literally. Yeah.
One of the angles we went at was writing your scripts in a way where they pass sets so that you could pipe it from one to the next to another script, so that you build up this repertoire of scripts that do core things you need to pull data sets together that you can then do actions on. So it's just a way of thinking about building more sustainable PowerShell.
What is our brown liquor for this week?
So this is Kempish Veer, which was brought to my friend Hannes, to my home. So I don't have it with me. I didn't bring it across the border. And it is a Belgian peated whiskey, which is weird.
They make great beer.
They do. And in fact, the guy behind this whiskey is a beer maker. His name is Guy Pirot. And he started making beer in the 80s in his mother's kitchen. Good enough that people were like, you need to bottle this and sell it. So he finally opened a brewery in 1998 because it's not that easy to open a brewery in Belgium, believe it or not, and upgraded all their facilities in 2010. And while he was at it, he bought a still and started experimenting with whiskey as well. And this is in Zandhoven, which is outside of Antwerp. So the sad part is that he keeps reusing the name. Kempish Veer means the fire of Kempen. The area that he's in is called Kempen, and it actually has peat bogs in it too, which is interesting for going for peaty flavors. And so there are beers called Kempish Veer, but they make one whiskey, and this is the one. It's only a 500 ml bottle, but he does use a bit of peat in the malt. Although he buys that malt already ground, but he has managed to make a deal with Lefroy, and he ages for 5 years in Lefroy casks. So it's sort of peat on peat. So lots of color, not a real high ppm. This is like a 35, 40, which is not bad. Like that's a peaty flavor, but the taste is really excellent. 46% and only available in Belgium. So it's only because my friend brought it over. So it's why the website is in Belgium. Like they just have no effort at all to export this product so far. So sorry to even show it off to you, but it was a unique, very interesting whiskey that you can only get if you go to Antwerp and buy some.
Well, that's an excuse to go to Antwerp. The only thing worries me is also the diamond capital of the world, and that means I better not bring Lisa.
Yeah.
It's a nice bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
very
an
pretty.
interesting product. And it's just, they make one whiskey. They make a bunch of different kinds of beer, and apparently all excellent award winning. They make one kind of whiskey, this one.
Once a Bieren, there's quite a bit of it. But yeah.
Apparently the triple was the first
I love
award
triples.
winner.
I love triples. Oh,
so proper
good.
Belgian beers, but
looks good.
Has this whiskey as well.
So, I mean, beer is not distilled, so it is a very different process.
Well, it is, but whiskey before it's distilled is a beer. Right? Like you make a wort,
you ferment it. Yeah.
And then if you finish it with hops and age it, you're making beer. And if you fire it through a couple of stills, you're making whiskey.
All right. So it's just a different final step in a way.
Yeah, same brewers use, same wash process. Really very similar, right? You get the same base product. That's why we always have that line is whiskey is what beer wants to be when it grows up.
All right, Richard. You survived the challenges of
This
Redmond.
was quite a day.
Yeah, no, and I think it's all going to come down to this machine. Microsoft decided it was going to be updated whether I wanted it to be or not, which is why the fans were cranking on it.
The good news is we got a solid 37 minutes to show out of 3 hours. So that was,
Oh, boy. And a couple of costume changes. So that's,
yes.
But next week I'll be in Vegas, so I'll be set up in one of the Skylofts, and we'll do it from there.
Oh, good. You'll be able to use WiMAX, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, and I'll have my
Starlink.
I'll just run my own rig, right? So
we should just get everybody Starlink. I mean,
that'll be the next step. Everyone gets Starlink.
Yeah.
Don't get it for me here in Mexico. I don't know if they might not make it.
Oh, yeah. Richard Campbell's at runesradio.com. That's where you'll find the great PowerShell episode, but also hundreds of others. He also does a great show, .NET Rocks, with Carl Franklin, both at runesradio.com. He's on the road, folks. Where in the world is Richard Campbell?
He's on the prowl. Lock your doors.
Beware.
We're going to do 3 weeks in Australia and New Zealand, so that'll be fun.
Wow.
And I'm just putting the finishing touches on a couple of weeks in South Africa, too. So
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, have a great time. We'll see you next week in Lost Wages.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Thurrott coming to us from CDMX. He is, of course, at thurrott.com all over the world, THURROTT. If you are not yet a member, become a premium member. There's a lot of great stuff there. You can also buy his books, The Field Guide to Windows 11 and Windows Everywhere. Those are at leanpub.com. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live on 8 different streams. Club members are watching in the Discord, but you could also watch on YouTube, Twitch, X.com, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick. 8 different ways to watch, but you don't have to watch live. I guess that's the point, because we make a podcast out of it. And that's what Kevin's going to be doing for the next 5 weeks on this episode. He's going to be busy cleaning this sucker up, but then you get the full, the perfect version, not the imperfect
week.
Yeah, he's going to be working hard.
It's not going to be pretty.
There were a few technical issues for those who are watching the edited version. Really? I didn't know that. Those are available at the website, twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel with the finished edited videos. Great way to share a clip or a thought or an idea with a friend and help spread the word about Windows Weekly. And of course, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast player and get it automatically the minute Kevin is done polishing it up.
It will be time for next week's show.
Yeah, maybe just in time. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week, you winners and you dozers, for another gripping edition of Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.